Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new ESO build video with me, Sherman. Today we're going to be showing off, or I'm going to be showing off, my new Dragonknight. And it is an Imperial. I decided to go the meta. And I know I don't really play the meta very often, but I decided to bring you guys a build that's really simple to put together, that you can put together and play, and it does fit the meta. And you can play it in dungeons and trials and all that. And it's just a really kind of a quick, easy build. It requires the Imperial race, of course. If you want to get the best out of it, you can. The other race you can go for is Nord or Orc. Would work really well. Argonians can do it too, but I chose the Imperial because of its 10% stamina boost and its 12% health. And let's go ahead and get in and take a look at it. So as you can see, I have a 14,000 magicka, a 30k health, a 26k stamina. I do have an 1800 weapon damage with a 29% weapon critical. There's a reason for this, and I had to get the higher critical for because of the gears. One of the gear sets I use, I had to get the higher critical for one of the benefits, and I'll show you guys that here in a second. I have a 25k spell and physical resistance of 24k, and if I switch weapons, you'll see it doesn't change at all because I'm using the same thing on both bars. But you'll notice my health recovery changes, which is kind of funny because I'm using the same same thing on both bars. I do have the Lord Mundus Stone. That gives me the 14,052 extra health, or 1,452 extra health. I'm also have Ebon Armory on. As you can see, the little red dots floating around me. And of course I am using Tri-Stat food to give me that extra boost to my magicka so I can keep certain abilities up more often. And then of course soul summons. So let's go ahead and take a look at the gear I'm running. I am using a two-piece blood spawn. I'm using reinforced helm with a sturdy shoulders. Both of them are in heavy. I'm using a 5-piece Night Mother's Gaze. Now, a lot of people will say that this isn't a good set to use for a tank, but I beg to differ, because whenever you deal critical damage, you reduce the enemy's physical resistance by X amount for 6 seconds. So if you're playing with a lot of stamina DPS, this is a really good set to use. If you don't have Alkosh, this is a good set to use for that benefit, to reduce the enemy's resistances just a little bit more. Now, I do use Ransack right now. I'm not using Puncture to get that 5,000, physical and spell resistance. And the main reason why is because this one does physical resistance. So I'm using Ransack for now. Once I get Alkosh, I'll switch over. But I don't know if I'm going to go after Alkosh right away because it's kind of a hard one to get. And then, of course, I am running a 5-piece Night Ebon set. So I'm using reinforced legs with reinforced gauntlets. Most of my stuff, you'll notice, is reinforced, and the reason why I went reinforced is to get my resistances as high as possible without the need of other stuff. I am using the jewelry set also. As you can see, 2 pieces have weapon damage, 1 piece has magicka recovery. The reason I went for the magicka recovery is so I'd get that my magicka coming in at a steady rate, not a really heavy rate, but a steady rate. And then, of course, I'm not really worried about stamina recovery because I get stamina back when I do heavy attacks. I get a lot back. I am, of course, using Sword of the Night Mother and Shield of the Night Mother. So, on one sword, I have Weakening to reduce the enemy's weapon damage and spell damage. It's a way to help my group when I'm in dungeons and stuff like that. And then, of course, I use a Hardening one as well to give me an extra damage shield, just for a little benefit of extra survivability when I'm in a dungeon. And then, of course, like I said, both my shields have magicka on them to give me that extra little bit of magicka that I don't get elsewhere. So this has stamina, health, stamina, stamina. I think everything pretty much is stamina, except for, nope, 2 pieces have health on them. And the rest is all stamina besides my shields, which are magicka. And the reason I set it up that way is so I could get the bigger benefit out of it. Now, I don't have my Undaunted unlocked yet, so I don't have Undaunted Metal, but I do have a light belt on and medium boots. So that's where I get the extra 2-piece, or where I wear the 5-1-1, and that's where I get it. I do use Tri-Stat food, like I said. Right now I'm using the Longfin Pasty with melon sauce. It's a really good easy food to get. It's usually pretty cheap. You can get a stack of this, like 100, for about 7,000 gold. So it's not too expensive, and it lasts a long time, like 2-hour time frame. And then, of course, using it in succession and stuff like that. I was thinking about switching over to this Imperium set. I think it's a really cool set for tanks, even though it's only a 10% chance to, give your group a damage shield. But I do think that's one set that you can look into getting for using as a tank. And I like I said, I think it's a pretty good one. If you can't get Abin or something. Abin is usually really one of the easier sets to get, though. So let's go ahead and take a look at the skills. On my main bar, my front bar, I actually run Noxious Breath. Now, a lot of people don't use Noxious Breath when playing a tank because it doesn't do enough for them. And, doesn't do enough damage, doesn't do enough poison damage, that kind of thing. But I went ahead and took it for that major fracture because I've noticed that when I do run groups and I have a lot of heavy DPS, like stamina DPS, this helps a lot because I can apply it to multiple targets with a really low cost. So I can apply it to multiple enemies. They can knock them down really quick without me running around trying to stab everything. And then, of course, Deep Slash. I would use Heroic Strike, but since I don't have Warhorn and I don't have, that ability right now, I just don't see a point in having the Heroic Slash. I went with Deep Slash instead. This one applies Minor Maim to multiple targets. It also reduces their movement speed. So it's a really good supportive thing. And if you have a high enough stamina and weapon damage, you can actually get a lot of good damage out of this, even in vet dungeons, because you'll hit, and if you crit, you also apply that extra resistance, physical resistance debuff on the enemies when you crit. So if you get that crit on this, or even on Noxious Breath, they get extra reduced physical resistance. So I try to keep this going on multiple enemies and try to get it to crit. If it doesn't crit, I don't worry, because when I switch to this and in this crits, I'll get that extra bonus. So I do run Igneous Weapons for my group's benefit to increase everyone's weapon and spell damage. It's really kind of a nice thing to have, especially when you're playing with a group and you notice that people aren't running things that increase their weapon and spell damage. This helps them by buffing their weapon and spell damage, making the damage a little bit better for the group. Fragmented Shield, another one that is highly recommended. A lot of people use, but a lot of people use Igneous Shield because it does increases your healing effectiveness by so much. I don't have Vigor, so I figured Fragmented Shield would be a better deal because it does damage when it explodes, and when your own shield is removed, that is, it explodes and does damage. But everyone else you apply your shield to gives them a 5,199 damage shield. And then mine is 100% plus another 10%, and I'll explain that a little bit more. On top of that, I run Green Dragon's Blood because I am more of a stamina build than a magicka build. And so I run this one, and it's based off of your max health. It recovers 33% of your max health. I think it's a really good thing to use. And then you also get major fortitude and major endurance and minor vitality, increasing your health recovery, stamina recovery, and healing received by 9% for 23 seconds. So really good, kind of a buff to have for yourself to keep your healing coming in higher and everything else. DKs get also a 12% whenever they have one of these slotted. So if you guys didn't know this, I think it's called Burning Heart. Yeah. So increases your healing received by 13% when you have a Draconic Power equipped. But with that extra 9%, you actually get a higher healing received. So your any kind of healing put on you is just like instant healing. It's amazing. I do run Shield Discipline. I know a lot of people don't use a lot of the ultimates from weapons when it comes to tanking. But this is a really good one to have on your bar because it gives you that block. It gives you that 100% block automatically for 6 seconds, but it also makes your one-handed shield abilities cost nothing. So when I use this, I usually spam this Deep Slash to apply that minor maim and that reduced movement speed, but also for the extra damage that I can do, and I can spam it really fast, get a lot of damage out of it, just to kind of help my group. I know a lot of people don't like tanks doing damage, but I don't mind doing some damage, so it really helps. Next up on my back bar, I have Ransack. Like I said, I took this instead of Puncture, and because of the fact that I do apply more physical resistance things you know, with the armor set, this applies to that as well. And you also get that minor resolve for 12 seconds, which increases your physical resistance by 1320. So when I use this, my physical resistance matches more of my magic resistance, and then when I buff myself with my dragon scales, or whatever they're called, the hardened armor, I get the extra 5,000 physical and spell resistance for 20 seconds. So I get both of those stacked on top of each other. I do run Choking Talons. I don't run it a lot, to be honest. I switched this out with the Chains ability, Unrelenting Grip, but I don't use that as often either. If I'm not using this or this, I'm actually using Venomous Claws. And I know a lot of people don't understand why I would use Venomous Claws. It's because poison seeps into the target and deals increased damage the longer it lasts, dealing 12% more damage every 2 seconds. So the longer this sits on the enemy, the harder it hits for. So when I'm playing in the open world, I actually use Venomous Claws all the time. But when I'm in dungeons and stuff, I switch to Choking Talons or Unrelenting Grip. It depends on the dungeon. Next up, I have Bone Shield. I'm working on leveling Bone Shield to get the Morph. But Bone Shield's a really good one for DKs because it's a stamina-based shield. And if you have a high stamina with a high stamina reduced cost, this really does come in handy. You can apply this to yourself and keep that shield up consistently with a high stamina. And I usually keep this and Hardened Armor constantly up, basically for that thing. And then, of course, while this is active, my next ability, Hardened Armor, I took it for the physical and spell resistance, and also the minor damage shield it puts on me for 3.5 seconds, based on 17% of my max health. It kind of helps reduce that damage initially when I get hit, so it's a kind of a nice thing. But while it's active, my armor returns 477 magic damage to melee attackers. So it's kind of another beneficial thing. It has a chance of doing some damage back as well. And this will do it too once I get it morphed. This will do damage back to the enemies, any melee attackers, which will be kind of beneficial for me, and I guess somewhat for my group. Next up, I have Absorb Magic. This is a phenomenal damage shield. If you're playing a tank, I would advise you to have this on your bar, especially on your tanky bar. I have this on my tank bar. I don't have it on my DPS side or on my other bar because I don't need it there. I have my damage shield there that I can pop up, and then of course my green dragon's blood. But this is a really nice shield. It does a lot of damage absorption, and it's based on your max stamina and weapon damage, so it's a really powerful shield. And it gives you back 15% of your max health whenever you're hit by a spell, so it's pretty powerful. And then whenever you have a shield ability slotted, the amount of damage you can block is increased by 8%. The cost of blocking is reduced by 8%. So I can increase the amount I can block and reduce the amount I can block by another 8%. That's why I have it here. And then, of course, I have my banner, my Standard of Might. And this is a really good one to have in the beginning when you're tanking, because standing in the standards area increases your damage done and reduces the damage you take by 15%. It doesn't seem like much, but it is kind of good. It also applies Major Defile, reducing the healing received on the enemy by 34%. So it's another way you can apply Major Defile if you don't have the Sword and Board ability Reverberating Bash equipped on your bar. You can use this on... And it does work on certain encounters, but you have to be able to build ultimate really fastly, and that's why one of the reasons why I am using Bloodspawn is so I can generate ultimate a little bit quicker for this ability. While it's active, though, you can activate Shackle Synergy, dealing 6,114 flame damage and immobilizing all enemies in the area for 5 seconds. It's a nice synergy as well. That flame damage that it does is kind of nice. That 1870 flame damage, especially if it procs a crit or two, it can be really good. And that's it for the skills. We're going to go ahead and take a jump into champion points. Now remember, I place my champion points differently than most people, so please don't get too freaked out. So starting with the first tree here, I have 27 into Spell Shield, increasing my spell resistance. I have 27 into Hardy and 27 in Elements of Defender, increasing my resistances here, and then 19 into Thick Skin. I'm just going to go ahead and dump that extra point I have into it. I'm going to try and get this up to 27%. And then over here I have 27 into Bastion, increasing the effectiveness of my damage absorbing effects. That means my damage shields by 10%, for me, and yeah. So, quick recovery, increasing my healing received by 5%. Remember, I get 13% whenever I have a dragon ability slotted, so I actually get 18%. So it's really a powerful way for me to keep my healing received high. Next up, heavy armor focus. I have 27 points in this as well to give me that 1600 extra resistances there. That's why I can push my resistances to 32k almost without any real problems. Next up, I have 15 in the Warlord and 15 in the Magician, reducing the cost of my magic abilities and stamina abilities by 5%. A tank doesn't need a whole lot of reduced cost because they get so much resources back whenever they're hit because you're heavy armor, and that's if you're tanking in heavy armor, you get a lot of resources back. And then of course with the reduced cost of stamina and magic, it does help as well. I also have 10 in here to give me 5% reduced stamina cost and bashing attacks because I do bash with my shield a lot to interrupt enemies. Next up, I have 27 in Arcanist, increasing my magic recovery by 10%. I already get high recovery for being a DK in magic or stamina and health. This is a way to get that extra magicka recovery. Next up, I have 20 into Tenacity. This is to increase my magicka and stamina return for my heavy attacks. Since I use a sword and board, it's mostly stamina I get back, so I get extra stamina back. I get 31% back whenever I do a heavy attack. Healthy, I put 27 in to increase my health recovery. I don't have a high health recovery unless I buff myself with Green Dragon's Blood, and then it jumps up to about 800 to almost 1,000 in health recovery and stamina recovery. Over here I have 27 into Befoul, increasing the effectiveness of my healing reduction abilities. So that Major Defile I have on my banner, and Reverberating Bash, I get an extra 12% added to them. They both are at 33%. This adds 12%, making it 45%. Really, really good to have that increased effectiveness of that reduced healing, especially on certain boss encounters. Shadow Ward, of course, I have 27 in here, reducing the cost of my blocking by 10%. Now, this is where I differ from most people when it comes to my tank builds. I have nothing in my apprentice tree, and that's because I don't need the blast. I don't need the healing stuff right now. And even if I did have, vigor or whatever, I probably still wouldn't put any points into that because I don't think it's necessary for me to be a full-on healer. Giving people that extra vigor is nice, though. I put 75 in a melee expert because the only way I really do damage is light and heavy attacks, so that 20% extra damage does help me apply more damage for my group. But I also get Reposit. Reposit's a really good one to have too, while blocking grants you 15% chance to deal so much damage back to your enemy. It's a way for you to do some extra damage for your group. It doesn't happen too often, but it happens enough. And then, of course, with this, your light and heavy attacks deal 5% more damage to enemies below 25% health. So when you're soloing or you're playing in a dungeon or whatever, you do get that extra damage, which is kind of nice. So it's 25%. Then you add Mighty to it, and it goes up to 35% more damage. I have 12 into Piercing, increasing my physical penetration more. I'm going to take this up to 27. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop a point into it, just to get it there, get it closer. I have 27 into Precise Strikes, increasing my critical damage done by 10%. And then, of course, I have 27 into Thaumaturgy, increasing my damage over time of my poison damage from Noxious Breath and also from the Venomous Strike. So that's pretty much how I keep my champion points. I'm going to go over here real quick, though, because there was a place I wanted to put a couple more points, and I don't remember where it was. I think it was Tenacity. So go ahead and jump it in there. I'm going to go ahead and save this and then get out of here. And that is my Templar build. And if you guys are wondering like what my resistances look like, oh, wrong one. When I'm buffed up, these are my resistances. And then, of course, if I have a healer with me with the staff that increases this will go up to 32,000, and this goes up to almost, I'll have 32,000 or 31,000. Close to 32,000 with this. It's kind of nice. And that's pretty much the build right there. I mean, I can keep my resistances pretty high and keep my defenses up there and all that kind of stuff while in dungeons and trials and all that kind of stuff. I have played this in a lot of the dungeons already, in vet mode, hard mode, all that kind of stuff. It works really well. And even in one trial, I've played this build, and in the trial, I didn't do too bad. I won't lie. It was a little hard for me because I was learning the trial. It was a new trial to me. It was Ophidium Sanctum. That's it. Ophidium Sanctum was, and it was a little difficult for me to get into and play. But I did play through the whole trial. There was just no gear that really dropped in there that I wanted, so I just like, okay. But yeah, that's it for the build, guys. I mean, it's a DK, or an Imperial DK. It's really kind of a good build. High stamina, high magic, or a high health build. And once I get Undaunted, I'm going to get another 6% added to my health and stamina and magicka. So it's going to be, I'm going to get that extra boost in there. I'll probably have like a 15, 16k magicka, like a 33k health, and like, I don't know, probably somewhere around a 29k, 28, 29k stamina. So it'll be really cool once I get there. I think I'm ranked 4 in my Undaunted right now. Almost ranked 5. So it's going to be a little while before I get it, but once I do, I'll be a lot happier. I do have Inner Fire unlocked. I just haven't used it, so to morph it or anything, I haven't been using it because I focus so much on using Sword and Board taunt that I just don't use it at all. Even in dungeons, if I can, I'll use Relenting Strikes or Chains to pull the enemy to me and then taunt him. It's a lot easier to me to do that. But yeah, that's it for the build. If you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit the like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. If you guys want to see more videos by me, I try to release videos at least right now 3 times a week. I'm getting a little bit better at getting my videos organized or set up and recorded and everything. It's just sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to record a video, especially on some of the topics that I talk about. So yeah, those ones can take me like 3 days to record. But yeah. But I do try to post them, but if you guys want to see those, more videos by me, you can always hit the subscribe button. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and I will see you all later. Bye.